This was very insightful. Oh my goodness. First things first, let me just say, Angela Rye came off as an absolute Democrat shill. That's what she came off in this interview. And it really wasn't an interview, it was a debate, as Jill Stein said. Because all she's doing, and what I mean by shill, let me specify that, is that someone who is just promoting constantly the Democrats. They're not any criticism, no criticism whatsoever. It's just promotion, right? They'll spin it into, well, it's a good thing. Or they'll spin it into, well, it's the Republicans' fault. That is their job, is to constantly and 100% be for Democrats, no matter what. What I'm talking about is this interview on The Breakfast Club with Jill Stein. To be honest with you, I didn't know who the hell Jill Stein was. The only time I remember Jill Stein was during the 2016 when it came to Hillary versus Trump, and people were blaming Jill Stein. That's the extent that I knew of Jill Stein. I would think that most people don't know who Jill Stein. I would think most people were in my same boat, but I could be mistaken. Having said that, listening to this interview, it was quite insightful, very eye-opening, and it was very interesting to see, Democrat shill Angela Rye go back and forth with Jill Stein. First thing with the interview, because I can't go over it all, but one of the first things that Jill Stein is pro-reparations. She's pro-cash payments for descendants of slaves. She's pro-reparations.
So I asked Dr. Jill in the interview, what's your position on reparations? And she said they behave as though it's incalculable, but it has been calculated by specialists many times. It's between 10 and $13 trillion US, and I'm in favor of cash payments to the descendants of the enslaved.
Then the immediate question comes into, well, what about you taking votes away from Kamala Harris? That has been the big thing with many of the third-party candidates. Like, hey, you're hurting Kamala Harris just like you hurt Hillary Clinton. And how it's explained, I believe her running mate, a Muslim guy, I didn't catch his name, but he talks about, listen, hey, your votes are essentially, thrown away anyway due to the Electoral College, right? You think that you're voting, it doesn't matter if you're in a Democrat state or a Republican state, Electoral College completely dismisses your vote unless you run in a swing state.
Well, let's go back to the question about throwing your vote away. In this electoral college system, all y'all throwing your votes away. Because unless you live in one of them 4 or 5 swing states, it is already decided that your state is going to go either blue or red before you ever get into the booth.
This happened to have gotten the ire of Democrat shill Angela Rye, which she says, well, Jill Stein, you actually went for a recount. You wanted a recount in Michigan. You wanted a recount in Wisconsin. And the irony is that she's actually proving the man's point. Because what did he say? He said that your vote is meaningless unless you're in a swing state. She then argues, Angela Rye, her coon self, then talks about how she wanted recounts in what? Swing states. Michigan, Wisconsin, I forgot the other one, it was probably Pennsylvania. Swing states. So she's proving his point.
In Michigan, for example, you acquired 51,463 votes. And in Wisconsin, 31,006 votes you acquired. In Pennsylvania, 49,485 votes, and Donald Trump beat her.
In addition to this, Jill Stein talks about, hey, how I didn't impact the outcome of 2016. The people who voted for me weren't going to vote at all. That when it comes to polls, it goes to the people who are registered to vote. She's saying the people she's talking to aren't there to vote, that they came out due to her. So when they try to blame her for this is why Hillary lost, this is why, Kamala may lose is because of Jill Stein, she's saying no, that has nothing to do with it whatsoever. The people who vote for me, they're not voting for either candidate. That's why they're voting for me.
The fallacy there, which is what, the Democrats in particular harp on, and it's not true. The idea that votes for Greens came at the expense of votes for Hillary Clinton. We actually know from exit polls and just from talking to people who vote for us, and it's about 61% of everybody who votes for us would not have come out to vote. So those votes didn't come from Hillary Clinton, and some of them actually came from Trump too.
Then it gets to a point where he's talking about, hey, that, that's why we want her to be on the debate stage because she'll completely destroy each candidate. He'll say that, hey, he'll call Kamala Harris a warmonger, I believe she said, and then Donald Trump, an ex-con, or he's a convict, he's a rapist, all of these things. So she's saying that she would blow them both out. She could, malign both of them and present a third option for the American people.
The reason why they don't want Dr. Jill Stein on a debate stage is because she will be able to look at Team Red and say, this is a party that is led by a domestic terrorist and a criminal. Okay, tried to overthrow the government on January 6th and is convicted of numerous crimes, including sexual abuse that amounts to rape and so forth. So this man is a domestic terrorist and a criminal. She will turn to Kamala, okay, and be able to say, this person is actually a war criminal in the following respect. The ICC and ICJ have made rulings that the Zionist entity, the State of Israel, is an illegal apartheid state. Okay, conducting an illegal genocide in the midst of an illegal occupation, and that anyone that provides material support to those things is actually complicit in war crimes.
Now, once again, we have Democrat shill Angela go, if. Like, how catty do you have to be? So when you have someone saying, hey, we want her, she's going to be on the debate stage, and you say if. By
appearing in a forum like this, what is going to happen is we're going to get on a debate stage. And when this woman goes up on the debate stage, exactly, well, who knows?
Like, really? Clearly, the reason that the Breakfast Club allowed Jill Stein to even be on here was due to Angela Rye being present. That's the only reason, because they were like, hey, we need to have someone to give some pushback. We need to have someone to give some pushback. It's as simple as that. We need some pushback. We can't have, her just talking and talking and talking this close to the election. So they brought in Angela Rye to be the pushback, the Democrat shill pushback, and be like, if, well, that's not true. Well, this and that. She didn't say anything throughout this entire interview. Throughout this entire interview, it was very much in the form of debate because she was so hostile and aggressive in her questioning. Just no reason whatsoever, just to be combative. So upon her saying if, this then gets into a whole issue as far as, well, the reason why they don't allow me to get on, on the ballot is because of, the 15%. And Angela Rye's, well, there's a reason why they have the 15%. And Jill Stein's like, yeah, there is a reason. It's to exclude, third-party members. And she talks about how it was the League of Women Voters, LWV, who were fighting against the CPD, which is the Commission of Presidential Debates. Now, the CBD was created due to Republicans and Democrat parties. And she talks about how they were created from, these corporations and how they beat out the League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters, they were certain prerequisites that CPD wanted for the debates that they didn't agree upon. Like one of them was like packing the place with their, people who are for Democrats or Republicans for either party, was also in addition to having questions. Like the questions would be asked by exclusively only, groups of people that they approved, that the Democrats and Republicans approved. That's where we get these Democrat debates by these, these shills, whether it's NBC, Fox News, ABC. That's what they wanted. And, the LWV was like, nah, that would be, an affront to the American people. That, you'd be giving a false sense of what the American voters wanted. Nevertheless, one thing leads to another. This now leads to CBD and why it's so hard for, a third party to run, which leads to Democrat versus Republican.
Before that, there wasn't a 15% threshold. When this was run, when it was run by the League of Women Voters, before it was hijacked by the private corporations of the Democratic and Republican parties, before they were in charge, it was whether or not you actually were going to be a choice for enough voters across the country that you could potentially win the election.
And she talks about how Democrats have been trying to stop her. How they've, as far as gotten their lawyers trying to attack her to get her off this ballot, get her off written ballots and whatnot. And I thought that was very, very interesting because it goes back to, as far as these corporations who control these parties. And he even talks about it where he talks about, hey, AIPAC is in control of many of these, these parties. They have a significant influence as opposed to the people. So her whole argument is, hey, I want to bring this back to the people. I want to make my argument to the American people as opposed to AIPAC, as opposed to these corporations, as opposed to these Democratic affiliates, these corporations, which is the Republican Party and the Democrat Party. I want to circumvent them and go to the American people. Then we get to Angela Rye, once again, hostile, aggressive, no reason other than, Democrat chill. Talking about, well, it's a wish list. That's what it is, it's a wish list.
What we do know about how politics works is that it can't just be this wish agenda.
Very disrespectful. So they break it down how it's not a wish list, because all this stems from, this clip that I'm sure has been circulated of Jill Stein saying that there's like 600 people in the House of Representatives. Obviously, what she's probably referring to is more so the electors, okay? That's the only number I can think would be anywhere near as far as 600. That's what I'm assuming what she's going at. But they're trying to use this, she doesn't even know how many people are in the House of Representatives.
How many voting members in the United States House of Representatives, Republican, Democrat, and Independent? How many total?
How many total
Yes.
are there? What is it? 600 some?
No, it's 435.
Plus 100 in the Senate.
But the point that she was making is that a lot of what she wants to do can be done through executive orders. What Angela Rye was trying to say was, if you don't have people in the House of Representatives, you got to have allies, right? Well, how many allies do you have? And that she kept on trying, well, you don't have any allies. You don't have any allies. And eventually Jill Stein says, well, this is the talking points of white supremacy. This is the talking points of the establishment. This is the talking points of the emperor, right? That there is no hope. And Angela once again goes to, what do you mean? I'm not going to allow you to say that the talking about white supremacy and,
Who called it a wish list? You mean the same people that spend $1 trillion of y'all's money blowing up other people's kids are saying it's a wish list to have an actual social programming?
He's out of line, but he's right.
Bon, this is the framing of the empire and the oligarchy and white supremacy and colonialism, which wants you to feel that resistance is futile. This is about voter blaming and voter shaming.
No. What you're not going to say is that I'm ever parroting anything at the hands of white supremacy.
What?
She constantly goes back into, women of color, because Jill Stein is lambasting AOC for criticizing her. And, what's her name? We'll just call her Democrat Chill. Democrat Chill Rye was talking about, it's really a shame that you keep on attacking women of color, okay, who are just trying to give you the facts and stuff.
And it is the talking point of AOC the other day, who is taking her marching orders from the DNC. This is exactly what they say, that we are only running for president.
Women of color as parroting talking points instead of us looking at basic math.
But at the end of the day, what she's trying to do is exactly what Jill Stein said, which is trying to say, hey, there is no hope. You have no path to winning. There's nothing for you. And what Jill Stein is saying is that, hey, despite what's going on in Congress, she has the power of the pen. She has the power of executive order. And given the Supreme Court's last ruling, when it comes to, it's legal until proven otherwise, that she's absolutely right. A lot can be done through, via executive order. And, it's up to them to prove that it's not, it's unconstitutional. Let it be settled out in the courts. But in the meantime, between time, without having to deal with the bureaucracy of Congress, she can get some things passed, ostensibly, until they're, fought in court. So it was really interesting to see just how an actual Democrat chill responds, where it's like, what about this? Always just combative. And it's not that she was combative with any policy that she was advocating for. She was merely there to be a talking head, to be a puppet for the Democrat Party. And thus proving what Jill Stein is saying is that, hey, these are just corporations. That's what it is. None of this is about the American people. It's about corporations. Even when it comes to the 15%, corporations, the benefit of the corporations, the benefit of, everyone but the American people. Now, I looked into Jill Stein. I looked at as far as her immigration. I'm glad she's for reparations. But immigration policy for me is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, all right? It's essentially Donald Trump's policy and Kamala's policy merged together, which is just bring everyone, okay? She wants to remove ICE and everything. Just lunacy in my perspective. But nevertheless, I think it's still great that her voice was heard, because she spoke a lot of truth, whether it comes to, her issues dealing with what's going on in Gaza, whether it comes to, corporate influence of, AIPAC and other such groups. There's a lot of good there. So in many cases, you have to take the good with the bad. And how this system is set up isn't really for the benefit of the American people. It's for the benefit of those with money, because that's who their linked to. That's who they are, in debt to, are the donors who give them such money. Your $5, $10 is great, but they're looking, as Donald Trump is looking, for his Jewish mega donor, right, to give millions upon millions upon millions. She talks about how Democrats, took away, I think it was $300K. She's like, it may not be a lot to, in terms of Democrat Republican, but for someone who's grassroots funded, that is a lot. So a lot of this has to stem with money. Once you put a wall of capital to enter a race for the American people, then that's obviously going to limit who can actually break that wall. It's obviously going to limit that. And if you don't want to take as far as money from other lobbyist group who are like, hey, I can give you this money, but we're going to need something in return, then it's almost nearly impossible, or I won't say impossible, but it's extremely tedious and arduous process to break through that wall as a grassroots. And that's what she was saying, and it very much holds true, till today. That's where we get a Kamala Harris and a Donald Trump. Anyways, guys, that's the video. Let me know what you guys think. Whether or not let's go Joe Stein, or this is foolishness, is a pipe dream or a wish list. Regardless, I think everyone should check out the interview, the full interview on The Breakfast Club. It was a great interview, just to see a different perspective, to know that, hey, you're not crazy, okay? When Trump says they're eating the cats or they're eating the dogs, that you think that's crazy, that you're actually not crazy, that yes, that is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Or when, Kamala Harris, constantly tries to avoid the question of blackness and India and all that, like, you're not crazy. I think it should be addressed at some point, especially when brought up on a presidential stage, even if it's, dismissive. But I think it should be addressed, just to acknowledge, to give that understanding that, hey, I am black, I am Indian, yada, yada, yada. Nevertheless, not to get too bogged down, if you happen to disagree, you know where to find me. Friday through Sunday, Disagreement Day. Call in, we'll duke it out. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please feel free to like, share, comment, let me know what you guys think, and subscribe, and all that fun stuff. Till next time, guys, be amazing.
What we do know about how politics works is that it can't just be this wish agenda.